Obviously, we want to talk about transfers, and we'll get to it straight away. N'Golo Kante, right? You've been putting out some like cheeky tweets about him, and funny enough, the day Tuchel was appointed, Matt Law wrote this piece, which I don't know is sort of sparked all of this speculation, because he said that Kante sort of, if I remember rightly, sort of like feels unhappy or not as sort of content at Chelsea. A lot of his personal friends at Chelsea have now moved on. You know, Hazard was a very close friend with him and moved on, and there's been so much upheaval at Chelsea, and it almost felt like reading about Kante's sort of demeanour, or at least reported demeanour, it felt like maybe a fan, like sort of feeling quite exhausted with the current situation at Chelsea. And you've been tweeting about what is the situation with N'Golo Kante, because it feels like there's been a question mark over this guy's head in terms of where's his best position, where is he going to play, does he have a future at Chelsea for several years now?
Yeah, no, well noticed. Matt Law was kind of the first one to be on it, which he typically is, right? Matt's brilliant. I talk with Matt, and he's a great guy, and he's obviously very connected. I'm a big fan of his work. And we've spoke about this kind of topic a little bit. With Conte, he's kind of like a fan in a weird way, like you say there, Daniel. It's he's very much of the, and I don't want to sound cliche or like, weird, but he's very like, I don't know how to say this, but he's very, he wants to be settled, is what I'm saying. I don't want to say a family man, but you understand what I'm kind of getting to, right? He wants to be settled. He wants to get on with his job. He doesn't really love change and upheaval. And I think the changing of managers every 20 minutes, I think the changing behind the boardroom every 20 minutes, and the changing of systems, and the changing more predominantly, the changing of his position, I think he's wearing on him a little bit. I do think it's wearing on him a little bit. I think his patience is being tested a little bit. I think he's very aware that moves could happen. I think he's very aware that big clubs will be interested in him. And as I said in my tweet, and I didn't want to be cryptic because I know people don't love the crypticness, and I understand why, but at the same time, people have to understand that you can't always share everything at that particular time, or you can't always, that things can change in football in 20 minutes. If it was concrete, then we'd all tweet it out right then, right? So, but what I would say is, and as I said it in my tweet a few weeks ago, whatever it was, it's just something to keep an eye on, because it's not, Conte's going to sign a new deal and he's going to stay forever, which it might have been 2-3 years ago. It's not quite there. And it's not quite also that he's out the door, by the way. It's fully capable that he'll stay. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because there are them kind of nuances in the background of him, and there is that little bit of him that's thinking like, oh, where do I fit? Where am I going to play? Am I going to be consistent? Am I going to, and Tuchel is clearly doing his best. If you can read between the lines, he's clearly doing his best in press conferences. And the little thing you tagged me yesterday, very well done by you, of the little clip of him after the game getting on Conte. So it's very obvious, I think, for most people who are not connected, even more so for those who are connected, what the situation kind of is of Conte.
Yeah, it's been quite tiring talking about Conte, because he's like, every 5 minutes it feels like we're having a conversation about where he fits, what's his best position. And I just think personally for him, if he doesn't feel settled, if he's quite tired by it, I could quite understand him wanting to move on, because he's done so much for the club. He's part of a brilliant title winning season, the Europa League win as well, a credible performance there, the FA Cup. So he's done a lot for Chelsea. I don't really have much fuss if he wanted to move on. I think it's an intriguing situation, isn't it? Because that midfield has been a big question mark, and I think if Tuchel wants to win the Premier League, he needs to fix it. Now, whether Kante is a part of that, I think is a big question mark, isn't it? And I think it goes into transfers of, say, the DM position, because the last time you were on, we spoke about that area. Now, this is when Lampard was in charge, and of course, Declan Rice was a massive target. That seems to have been completely killed dead now, like in terms of any interest, at least from what I'm reading at the moment. I still feel naturally we need a DM, because I don't trust that current midfield to win us a Premier League title. Despite him doing well currently with Georgian cover, I think the same frailties may come up unless Tuchel can find some really good tactical plan to stop that happening, to stop those players being exposed. So what do you think about targets now? Because it seemed like Rice was the obvious one, but he, of course, was being pushed by Lampard.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that we need a DM. We need something different. I think Billy and Mason and Kova and Jorginho, they offer and Conte, they all offer similar things, right? They all obviously have their strengths and weaknesses, but they all offer very similar things where we don't really have that Patrick Vieira, Roy Keane, Claude Makelele in our squad, which we do need. So yeah, the Declan Rice thing's a shame, because obviously I wanted that. I think a lot of Chelsea fans did want that move, and it made sense for a lot of reasons. But unfortunately, that's gone a bit quiet. So, which was always going to be the case of Hyperbole was sacked, and he was, and Declan was aware of that. Scouting that position, they're still scouting players within that position. I know Sakari is another one. There's a guy from Marseille who Simon's wrote about a few times. This is more Simon's, I would say, with us too. It's more Simon's area, the DMs, because I was more Declan Rice, but he kind of covered the rest of it, so he's probably a better person to ask on this. But yeah, what I do know for sure is that Chelsea are still scouting that position. They're still looking at players in that position, and they're still fully aware as a club. And Tuchel will eventually be on board with it when they talk about it. The targets that they do need that position. Conte has been trialled there. I don't think he can play there. I think Tuchel's been very evident with that in the double six, as he calls it, the double pivot, or an eight, to use his tenacity and his energy, as Tuchel called it. So, and Billy Gilmore's not a holding mid. He can play there, but he's not that profile that we need. And he's fantastic, but he's not that profile. So yeah, I agree with you, Dan. We do need it. I think I know the club are still looking at it, and targets are still being had, but we won't know exactly maybe who for sure until Tuchel sits down with the club and says, okay, this is what we need and this is who I want, and then the club can come together and work on that.
Club targets versus coach targets seems to be a massive problem at Chelsea, and I don't have a problem with it, right? And I think it makes a lot of sense. Take my emotional side of this out, I understand if you're going to have this mindset that every 2 years we're going to change the person in the hot seat, right? You want some consistency in terms of your recruitment. And I did believe, say, under Conte wanted to sign a lot of players, say, in 28, 29 years old, who had no resale value and were very much for him, and as we've seen, they're sort of the fallout of the current squad. I think the bloated squad we have currently is sort of the consequence of signing a bunch of players for different systems that have sort of all muddled together. I just wonder in terms of the striker and centre-back position, which are sort of the other two that are consistently being talked about now. Obviously, the main target for striker seems to be Haaland. There's been a lot of noise around that recently. And centre-back, there's a lot of options there. Just in terms of your opinions on both of those and sort of the struggle between what Tuchel would want personally for his system and what the club actually want.
Yeah. Firstly on Haaland, obviously a club target, obviously being scouted. I've tweeted on this and wrote so many articles on this, and it hasn't changed. I wrote that first article like a year ago now, saying that he was going to be on the list, and I remember it blew up, that whole tweet blew up, and most people, 90% of people were like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, and there's always that 10% right. It's like, this is a lie, this is not happening, this is a joke, and then here we are, we're still here. So, yeah, he's definitely on the list, he's definitely been scouted, Chelsea are definitely very intrigued by this whole saga. Of course, Tuchel wants him. You'd be stupid not to, right? So if there's one person or one target that them two will definitely agree on, it'll be him. Simon actually, we obviously talk on the side, and he's asking his questions to his people, ask my questions to my people, and we always come together, of course, and then make sure, and then we put our work out. But he actually texted me this morning and was like, this Haaland thing's stepping up. So, and I woke up to that text. So he didn't give me, we haven't spoke today in a more extensive sense because it's early morning here, so I'll talk to him a little bit later about it. But that's what he said. One of his messages today was, as of the last couple of days, this Haaland thing is stepping up. So what that means, I'll get more info later, and I'm sure I'll share it, or Simon will share it. But that's I had that text, so I thought I'd share it here while I have you here. So that's definitely a thing. Centre backs, yeah. Centre back is I've done more work on this on the centre backs. That's kind of more my thing, I would say. And obviously, Upamecano was a club target. Tuchel liked him, but the club didn't really push it. I think they were kind of reliant on maybe dominating the market maybe in a later time. Whereas Bayern, as we know, are very efficient. They want a target, they're going to go for him, no matter, and they're going to do it quick. So fair play to them. They got him. But Chelsea did like him. Chelsea also like Jimenez, right? But he's £80 million. I think if he was 50 million, we'd get him in a heartbeat. I really do. I think Lampard really liked him. The club like him. So I think if he was cheaper, we would get him immediately. But that price tag is just mental. So that would be difficult. But yeah, it's definitely someone we're going to sign a centre back, whether it's summer, January, or the summer after. In the next year or year and a half, we will sign a centre back. Who? Again, it's so hard, Dan. It's February. Tuchel's not worrying about it right now, and the conversation hasn't happened, so we can't really get 2 or 3 definitive choices. The only ones you're going to hear, Dan, is the ones that are linked on the timeline, like Upamecano was, right? And Jimenez, If you had to put your money on it. The obvious ones are right. Jerome Boateng, Nicolas Sula, that's a thing. I said that a few weeks ago, that Sula's a thing. Chelsea are looking at that. Chelsea are very invested in that, and they're very aware that Bayern have made another centre-back signing. So someone really has to go, right? So it'll be one of Boateng or Sula or both, depending on kind of what their goals and aspirations are. So Chelsea are very much going to be looking at both options. Boateng, I don't think is as serious as Sula. If I was going to bet, I'd say Sula's closer. And I don't mean closer as into signing, I mean closer to Chelsea's, what they're looking for. So, it'll be something we'll sign a centre-back, and it will be, a good, young, commanding centre-back. That's the profile they're looking for. But in terms of who it will be for sure, a little bit too early to say. But, just look out for, I would say, in the next month or so, when you start seeing the same name linked, that means that it's probably pretty serious, because Tuchel's probably had that chat and said, I want this player.
If it is, because I've had this sort of, I might say debate, but sort of like thinking about it on my channel recently, of my belief, and it seems that actually, as you've said, the club are looking at maybe a younger centre-back. To me, my belief was I'd prefer an older centre-back, because I'm thinking about Tomori and Gurhi. And I'm thinking about those two players and their future. I mean, if Chelsea were to, a bit like when we signed Kai Havertz, right? I think that sends out a statement. I can't believe when we signed Kai Havertz last summer, the likes of Conor Gallagher and even Tino Andrew think to themselves, that's a spot potentially for the next 5-6 years is going to be taken up as a creative midfielder. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Ross Barkley, it's the same thing, right? I wonder if we were to sign a centre-back, say, 25 years old, because I think Sula is 25 years old. What does that say to Fikayo Tomori? What does that say to Mark Gurhi, along with the other centre-backs we have? Do you know what I mean? I know the club wants instant results, but I wonder for those players, and there's so much excitement around them and desire to see them in the first team, currently on loan. Surely that's going to ring alarm bells for them.
We don't know yet if Tomori will be signed by AC Milan. They seem to really like him, but AC Milan are also not too privy to spend 30 million on a player outright, so that might not be the case. I think Rudiger or Zuma, one of the two will be gone within a year, I would guess, because Zuma is very much of the fact that he knows he's rated, he knows he'll have interest, he knows he'll have suitors, and if he doesn't play, he'll want to leave. That is how he is. He's made Chelsea aware of that before. So even though Chelsea, the club, love him, the actual club love him, he will leave if he doesn't play. Not a problem. And we still don't know with Rudiger, right? We still don't know. I know he's saying he loves the club and he wants to stay, and Tuchel's playing him right now, but we just don't know. That could change very quickly, right? Again, if he doesn't play, he will want to go as well. So I would say that there will definitely be one or two, maybe, definitely one or two outgoings as well. So that will open up opportunity. But yeah, I think the thing with Chelsea wanted, and I agree with you, Daniel, when I first heard about the whole centre-back thing, it was we should really be signing a more experienced, older player. I said the same thing. But when you look at it, I think the reason that Chelsea are going for someone who's experienced but also young is because of the transfer philosophy right now is signing players who are young and experienced. If you look at it, Timo Werner, he's young but he's experienced. Kai Havertz, he's young but he's pretty experienced for his age. Mason Mount has a lot of good experience. I know he's not a signing. Christian Pulisic is playing Champions League. He's young. That's kind of the thing right now. We talked about trends earlier. That's our trend right now, and I think that's what the club's going for. Kind of young superstars as such, but also very experienced. But young enough that they have a resale value, young enough that they can develop, young enough that they can be coached, because it's obviously easier to coach a younger guy than it is an older player. So that's the current club philosophy, and that's why we're looking at them players right now and that calibre of player. I
think the most basic thing for me is I expect a big summer. You just got to believe that Chelsea, if they want to win the Premier League title next season, need a big summer. Before we wrap up, just one more question about just sort of your expectations for the rest of the season. Of course, it all feels nice at the moment, and we're winning games, 4 wins in a row in the Premier League. What is it, five unbeaten? We're obviously through to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup with a decent draw for that as well. I think that's something people forget. I think it'd be wonderful to win the FA Cup at the end of this season. Just your expectations, because the Premier League is so mental this year, and if Chelsea continue on a good run, you think, I don't think it's ludicrous to suggest we could finish second this season.
Yeah, so I think it's different. Like my expectations versus what's going to happen, what I think will happen. I'll do both. My expectations, I would expect us to make the top 4. I would expect us to make the top four. I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think, though. I saw a poll the other day on Twitter that is, and I don't remember who it was, and it's not a bad thing. It's a fair question, but is top four Chelsea's to lose? And I think predominantly people voted yes, and I would disagree. I don't think it's anybody's to lose right now. It's going to fluctuate so much. Chelsea will go for a tough run again. If you think we're going to go on now and win every game to the end of the season, you're wrong. We will go for a little bit, hopefully not a Lampard tough time, but we will go for a little blip, and it'll be interesting to see how we react. So I would expect us to make top four. If we miss out on it by a point or last game of the season and we come fifth, yes, it'll be devastating, but I don't think we could be overly shocked because of the work we had to do and the funny season. But yeah, I would expect top four, my expectations. I would expect us to make at least a final of the FA Cup. I think that's a given, right? I think we've got what are we now? Quarterfinals against Sheffield United. Yeah, you should be winning that. I know the FA Cup can do anything, and that's the magic of the cup, and that's why we love it. But you'd expect us to win that, and then we'd have to just win one more game, right? So I'd expect us to make the FA Cup final at least. And I'm not sitting here saying we have to win it because anything can happen in the final, as we've seen. We've lost finals against Arsenal, we should never have lost. So, and then for the Champions League, I said to Simon about 2 months ago or a month ago that I didn't think we'd make it through against Atletico. I did say that. That was under Lampard. That was when Atletico were absolutely flying and we weren't. So, am I a little bit more optimistic now? Perhaps. But if I was going to bet my whole house and mortgage and wife and kids and dogs and cats and everything, I don't know. I still think Atletico might get it. But that doesn't mean I won't be wanting and be optimistic because I'm always an pretty positive guy on the timeline. So I would expect us to, push Atletico close if we get through. Fantastic. Top four and final of the FA Cup. What I think will happen, we'll scrape top four just. We will make the final of the FA Cup at least, and we'll get knocked out by Atletico, unfortunately. But hopefully we get through.
Football's a crazy game, It's sort of, you go, I want this to happen, but then it sort of goes in the opposite way, and then you're by the end of last season, I was sort of not really caring about the FA Cup semi-final because I wanted the top four because I cared about it so much, and of course we beat Man United, got to the FA Cup final. It's a crazy game. I do think in the sense of Atletico Madrid, it would be massive if we won that tie because, just historically, we haven't been past the last 16 since 2014. That's something that needs to change. And I know Matt Law wrote a piece about this and sort of, I think it is important that if Tuchel's going to do something special at Chelsea, there needs to be a mindset shift there. We can't just be in the slog in the Premier League can't be just getting into the Champions League because we can sign nice players. It has to be, we need to get back to competing in the Champions League again, actually a team that can hurt teams in that competition. So we'll have to wait and see. And I do agree with you that it's a crazy season. It's waves for every team. Every team goes through waves of form, and it's just hopefully by the end of the storm, we're somewhere in the top four, hopefully. And that'll be good for Tuchel. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on the channel once again. As I mentioned at the start, your work with Simon at the moment, please shout that out. Obviously, Simon got his Twitter hacked recently, but he's got it back now, which is all good. And I know you have newsletters and obviously your podcast where you get some great guests on. Do you want to shout out all that stuff now?
Yeah, so unfortunately, he got his Twitter hacked by a bunch of, I think they were dog lovers because they're sick of seeing his stuff with his cat. But he got it back, so that's good news for obviously everybody. It was a nice opportunity to grow our other Twitter page, so that was nice. But he's got it back, so that's good. That's great news. That helps us. So Simon Phillips Talks Chelsea. Yeah, it's a free newsletter. Simon writes up a free newsletter every week for everybody that goes straight into your inbox, which is free. And then we do a podcast each week, which is also free. And we're trying to get on, not just a traditional guest. We're trying to get on something a little bit different. We had Sean Wallace, right, from The Chase, what an episode that was. And we're also, talking to some people right now who are a little bit different in guests, but bring something different to the table. It's all good having Chelsea fans, and predominantly it will be Chelsea fans, but also something a little bit different from the timeline that separates us. So, free podcast. You can find it everywhere, Apple, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. And articles. I write an article once a week, sometimes twice. Simon will write many articles that you can find on our website, which is www.sciphillipstalkschelsea.substack.com, something like that. You can find it there. You can find our Twitters, Macca Sport and Cy Phillips Sport. And we'll be around. We're doing our thing. We're ticking along nicely. We're growing very, very much, and we're growing lots and lots of support from everybody. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, I always enjoy. I got it on my mailing list, so I got the email recently about it's not only your piece, but also the recent newsletter by Simon Phillips as well. So all the links for Dan's work and Simon's work will be in the description box below. So please go and check it out, support their work, not only in terms of their site, the newsletter, the podcast, but also follow them on Twitter as well. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.